Well, unless you have completely checked out over the last 3 days, as I did, you certainly have heard by now that Donald Trump claims he will be arrested tomorrow. There has never been an arrest or indictment of a sitting or former president in the United States. If Trump is right, if he's telling the truth slash correctly informed, which is still a question mark, this will be one of the biggest news stories in decades in the United States and the world, quite frankly, as the globe waits to see, will Trump be even potentially held accountable for any of the myriad things that he did while he was president and in the lead up during the 2016 campaign? Where do we even start? Well, let's start with how this all started with Donald Trump's outrageous all caps posts riddled with grammatical and spelling errors to his social media platform, Truth Social.
Truth Central.
Call it whatever the hell you want. Look at the news. And it is news, quite frankly, that Donald Trump predicted his arrest on that platform. Let's go right into it. And again, if you're listening, these messages are in all capital letters, which I think is just another one of these little details. Let's get right into it. Quote, "Our nation is now third world and dying. The American dream is dead. The radical left anarchists have stolen our presidential election and with it the heart of our country." I'm reading it as written. Trump writing Stalin, of course, a famous German Christmas bread riddled with nuts, spices, as well as candied or dried fruit. The anarchists have stolen our presidential election and with it the heart of our country. American patriots are being arrested and held in captivity like animals, while criminals and leftist thugs are allowed to roam the streets. That's not true. Killing and burning with no retribution. That's a lie. Millions are flooding through our open borders, and the wrong borders, spelling borders like if you were a boarder at a boarding house. Many from prisons and mental institutions. That is also a lie. The crime and inflation are destroying our very way of life. Now, illegal leaks from a corrupt and highly political Manhattan district attorney's office, which has allowed new records to be set in violent crime. Well, the violent crime rate is higher in Oklahoma City than it is in New York City. But why let the facts get in the way of a good all caps rant? Trump continuing, and whose leader is funded by George Soros, indicate that with no crime being able to be proven, and based on an old and fully debunked by numerous other prosecutors fairy tale, the far and away leading Republican candidate and former president of the United States of America will be arrested on Tuesday of next week. I know that that's an incoherent word salad, but Trump is saying they're going to arrest him tomorrow. Protest, take our nation back, Trump demands, and then continuing the calls for protest, and what is increasingly, concerningly, going to be a violent protest, which we know Trump supporters are capable of. Remember January 6th, Trump posting more. Quote, "It's time. We are a nation in steep decline, being led into World War III by a crooked politician who doesn't even know he's alive, but who is surrounded by evil and sinister people who, based on their actions on defunding the police, there has been no defunding, destroying our military, the military is fine, open borders, the borders are not open, and no voter ID, well, voter ID depends on each state, inflation, which is down, raising taxes, Biden hasn't done that, and much more, can only hate our now failing USA. We just can't allow this anymore. They're killing our nation as we sit back and watch. We must save America. Protest, protest, protest." And then finally, continuing this morning with these all caps tirades, quote, "The lead prosecutor for the corrupt Manhattan DA's office worked as a lawyer for crooked Hillary Clinton and her law firm, left this Democrat firm with others to volunteer to, quote, get Donald Trump at the DA's office for free. He quit in a huff when DA Bragg said there was no case here. He then unethically and illegally wrote and published a book about the case while it was going on. This is unheard of stuff. The case is now completely compromised, and reports are that Mark Pomerantz is in trouble." This is all wild stuff, so let me break it down for you with clear terms. No president has ever been arrested nor indicted. Trump claims he will become the first tomorrow. There have been two American presidents subjected to criminal investigations. Those were Richard Nixon and, yes, Donald Trump. Nixon, of course, resigned from the presidency before he could be impeached over the Watergate scandal. And that involved the break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters and the attempts, of course, to cover it up. Nixon was never indicted, and Trump may be indicted. Trump could also be wrong, and Trump could also be lying. I believe that this, if it happens politically, will make Trump stronger, except if there are more indictments. I don't believe this case, which is about Stormy Daniels, is the strongest case against Trump. However, it's possible, as we've said before, that prosecutors are saying to themselves, I have a case against Trump, but I don't want to be the first to indict, not the first to indict Trump, the first to indict any former president. So we may have at the federal level, we may have in Georgia, we may have the Tish James investigation. Remember, this is another investigation. They may be waiting for another indictment first to then say, now I'm ready. I didn't have the testicular fortitude, ovarian fortitude, whatever term you want to use, to be the first to indict Trump. But I am certainly willing to be second or third. And this may be when the levee breaks for our Led Zeppelin fans. And in that case, I think it will weaken Trump if it just overwhelms him with criminal cases. However, I think if this is the only indictment, it will galvanize Trump's supporters and help him in his Republican primary. We will get to that later. Let's next talk about how will MAGA react if Donald Trump is arrested. As many of my viewers and listeners, of course, know, I have many family members who work in the field of mental health. And I think one of the most important things that we can do is to both increase access and reduce stigma when it comes to mental health services. And that's why I am thrilled that one of our sponsors today is BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it is 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists, an important word, therapists, who can help you with a wide range of issues. You answer a few questions about your needs and your preferences, and BetterHelp will match you with a therapist that meets your needs. You can then talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable. Could be text, could be chat, phone, video call. You can message your therapist anytime. You can schedule live sessions when it's convenient. And if your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but it's on your schedule and it's at a more affordable price. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Pacman. The link is down below.